Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Boot Nerds podcast. Jay, what's going on? How are you?
Life is good, my man. How's it hanging with you?
I am pretty tired because I played hockey last night at 10 p.m. and didn't get home till like midnight and then didn't fall asleep till like 2. And now it's a couple hours later and we're recording the Boot Nerds podcast.
Oh, poor you. Waking up to talk about football boots. Such a shame. And no. The good thing is that you've woken up to talk about football boots. That's the best thing. And talk about football boots is basically what we're going to do today. We're not going to talk about boots that are actually even existing, and we don't know if they will ever exist. But we'll tell you all about that in a little bit, because if you are new to the channel and you haven't already done so, please don't forget to go subscribe to the Boot Nerds podcast and leave a like on the video if you enjoy the stuff we do. It's going to mean a lot to us, and thank you if you do and don't click dislike. So that would be a great thing. And also, if you have any questions that you would like Josh or myself to answer, well, you can do so in the comment section right down below as per usual, and we're going to pick the best ones and answer them in the end at the end of the video. So yeah, welcome to episode 46. It's going to be awesome.
So we were trying to come up with a topic for this podcast, and there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of new stuff in the football boot world, but since the year is kind of more or less coming to an end, and typically Januaries have been pretty busy as far as boot releases go, we figured it'd be fun to share our own personal, I guess, wish lists to a certain extent of what we would like to see, which new boots we'd like to see in 2020 that I think are pretty likely to come out in some of these examples, but only time will tell, of course.
I think we've seen boot silos and, boot, I would say, launch schedules. They've been relatively consistent over the last couple of years. So I think it's, we can have some fair guesses on what we will see in 2020. And of course, what our wishes would be for those particular boots. I think we should also probably try and speculate a little bit on what could happen based on feedback on some boots. So where do you want to start?
I think we start with probably the most obvious one of what is due for a change, and that is the Adidas Predator series, which is one of the boots that I'm personally very excited about. And this is one where we do have some information based on pros training and blacked out pairs. It looks very, very promising, and I'm quite excited because while it's not the classic leather Predator that some of the older Pred heads perhaps want, it is much more along the lines of what I personally feel a modern Predator should be, and I'm very excited about that.
It looks very exciting. I think we've all boot nerds have seen the images of Guendouzi and some of the other players training in these boots that look. I know a Predator is supposed to look wild, but this actually looks proper wild, really, really out there. And I like that. I like the look of it. I like how it seems to carry on the DNA of the current Predator into something that is actually taking the boot forward. And it looks to be taking the boot both forward and back to where it should be, because that was one of the complaints we had about the current lines of the Predator, is that, yes, it was a very nice boot and it had a lot of Predator DNA and ideas, but we were lacking some like Predator elements, and based on the images, this looks to have that in abundance.
Yeah, it looks like I was thinking about why power boots died. And obviously the T90 series and the Predator series from Adidas were the two staples as far as power boots go. And the T90 series was kind of tapering off in popularity, and Nike tried something new with the CTR 360, introducing control boots. And that's something that I think is also part of the reason why the T90 line ended up dying off. And Adidas seemed to kind of follow suit in terms of transitioning the Predator series from power boots to control boots, which is basically what we saw when they went from Predator X from Adi Power to Predator LZ, no? It kind of went from a power boot to a control boot to a certain extent.
But do you think it's been a power boot? Because I mean, in my opinion, yes, it's always, it's always been like a powerful boot, but I've never actually seen it as a power boot. And a lot of people say the same thing as you, that it's been a power boot, but at the end of the day, the first Pret was designed to give you more grip. I'm not saying I'm right or anything. It's just like, has it ever been a power boot in your opinion, other than the Pret Power Swerve Power?
Oh, I definitely think it has been. You're right. The original Predator was designed with the idea of providing more grip, but the idea of providing more grip mainly when striking the ball, right? It was always about added power, added swerve. It was always a striking element on the boot rather than a control element, which when they went to LZ with the lethal zones, you now had elements for shooting and you had elements for control, most of them being elements for control. And that's kind of where the Predator series has gone up until this point, even when they very quickly transitioned into Ace and then changed their mind and switched back to Predator with this new model. And it's hard to say until we actually have the boots in our hands, but it looks like it has something along the lines of what we saw from the LZs and the Instincts in terms of these more minimal rubberized or grip elements across the upper that, while maybe it's geared ultimately towards being more of a control boot than a power boot, it's still more power boot looking than pretty much anything else out there right now.
That's true. And I'll give you, I think we're probably going to, we found our first thing where we really, really disagree on what the Predator was. I'll always see it as a control grip, something like that boot rather than a power boot, but that's a discussion for another day, I think. But you're absolutely right in saying that it has those. It seems to have those grip, shooting, control, call them whatever you want. It has those elements, but it seems to be in a really sleek, minimal execution where it doesn't look bulky in any way, at least from the images we've seen.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a pair of football boots that, based on how they look, based on what we've seen so far, I am anticipating playing in these boots and experiencing something that is noticeably different than every other football boot that you can buy, which I think is what the Predator series used to be. That was kind of like, you bought a Predator because it's the only boot that feels like a Predator. And I don't think you can say that about the current Preds, because it's basically just a very plain knitted upper. Not to say that it isn't a very good knitted upper, but there are 10 other boots you can buy that are going to feel similar to the current Predator, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case anymore.
And that's what we talked about in the last episode as well, that we need some sort of elements on the Predator for it to feel like a proper Predator. And it should still be sleek, but yes, they should be there. But what do you wish for the Pret to be then? Okay, we've seen some images. You have some sort of idea about the direction they're taking for it. But what's your wish for the Predator to become in 2020?
My wish, I'm anticipating maintaining a knitted upper. I don't see that really changing. My main thing that I really want is added grip. I don't know what your experiences were with LZ, LZ2, as well as Predator Instinct, but those are boots that I felt like I needed a couple training sessions to get used to the amount of grip that they provided versus other boots out there. And once you got used to that, it was something that I felt like you could use to your advantage. And if you went and played in other boots, you'd kind of be missing out on that grip. It's why I really loved the Predator Instinct. That was a go-to boot for me. Even though there were so many things about that, mainly the outsole and the stud pattern, I didn't care for it. But because I liked having that extra grip so much, I didn't mind wearing the boots. That's what I'm hoping for from this new Predator, is I want a ton of extra grip on the ball, which is great for control. It's great for shooting. It's just something that, again, offers an experience that nothing else on the market can offer.
I am with you. I basically feel the same. And then I want, I wish they would make a leather version. I mean, what would happen if they made it in leather? Yes, it looks like knit, and it probably will be, but what happened if they actually made this that we can see on Guendouzi's feet? What happened if they made it in leather? That's what I really wish for that we're gonna see, because then we're starting to talk like proper Predator vibes here for me. Get the leather back, get the grip elements, make it as an updated package. That would be really, really good for me. But my wish is also to get the feeling of having more grip on the ball. That is what I want the most, texture, friction on the ball. That's what set the Predator apart, and that's what it should be. So yeah, that's what I expect. And
yeah,
I was probably more into the LZs than the Instinct. It was too bulky for me, but I know you like it bulky. I know you like it powerful. So maybe that's
Jay,
the thing.
You know what I miss? I miss about power, like the T90s and the Predators. Every new model that came out, you'd get the boots, and there was almost like a learning curve to playing in the boots. You know what I'm saying? Like a T90 Laser 3 was just so drastically different than every other football boot that you could buy, that the first time you played in them, you're like, oh my God, this is kind of weird. You might really like it. You might kind of not like it at first, but it would take a couple training sessions to get used to what that boot had on offer, because you had so much grip on the medial side, not so much grip on the lateral side.
And there was so much material between your foot and the ball.
Right? Yeah, it was just weird. And I had the same thing with the LZ series from the Predators. And I don't know. I would like to see something like that again from the Predator series.
Right. And it looks like we're going to get it. So leaving the Predator, I think we more or less agree on where we want to take that. But then what is going to happen? I mean, we've also seen some of the Nike Phantom Vision boys training in a blackout. And you know, it's been a while since the Vision came out. So we might also be able to expect some sort of update to that. What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, Phantom Vision 2 looks to be right around the corner, and based on Nike's normal schedule of releasing new models, that seems to be very likely to happen sooner rather than later.
I mean, it's the boot that hasn't been updated for the longest period, right? So that would be a natural next step for them.
Mm-hmm. It's their oldest boot. But honestly, Jay, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, because we did get a shorter life cycle for the first time in a long time with this new Mercurial, which only ran, a year and 3 months or something like that? Because normally Nike is 2 years. They release a new model, expect colorway updates for 2 years until something new comes out.
But I would probably look at the Mercurial and say, okay, I think Nike are treating this as an update. So it's not just like Adidas updated the Predator 18 plus, slapped a rubber heel pad on it and called it 19 plus. That for me is what the Vapor 13 is, the Superfly 7 is. It's like it's the same boot, but just with some sort of tweak to it to make it better. Because I know it's radically different and it performs differently, but to me it still has the same DNA. So yeah, I don't think we should expect shorter life cycles because of that. But I definitely see something happening to the Vision, and I want Nike to fix one thing primarily, and that is the sock. Because we've been talking about this a lot, and the boot has a lot going for it. I mean, the grip is really, really nice, very unique. It's one of the grippiest boots, if not the grippiest boot on the market right now. The upper is super thin, very soft and flexible, and you actually get a nice, roomy, comfortable fit in them. Sole plate isn't bad either. It's just the damn sock that is completely ruining the experience for me. And if they actually fix that and make the boot sleeker, I don't think I'd mind it, actually.
I love how people get on me for criticizing laceless boots, which I think every criticism I've ever given of a laceless boot is very fair. But my so-called hatred for laceless boots is nowhere near your hatred for that little collar on the Phantom Vision. I'm just, every time you start ranting about it, it just blows my mind how angry it makes you. It's in my opinion, it's such a shame that a boot that has so much going for it is getting, a boot is only as good, in my opinion, as the worst component. And to me, that component is really, really bad. So it just takes the whole experience of the Phantom Vision down. Fix it, and we might actually have a really solid product on our hands. And I'll be the first to raise my hand. If it's a good product, you're going to be the first to hear it from me. Yeah. I mean, I think that the Phantom Vision as it is right now is actually a really solid pair of football boots. The control concept that they're going for makes a lot of sense given the design that they've done. And texture and grip is really what they've focused that design around, which is hard to tell in pictures, but if you've ever held a pair of Phantom Visions in your hand, there's a lot of the upper has the texture of kind of like a sandpaper basically,
yeah.
right? But ultimately, I think if we compare the grip provided by that upper versus something like a Predator LZ or a more traditional rubberized striking element, it's not even close.
No.
Right? And I think that if Adi is going to go in the direction of adding even more grip with the Predator series, which looks to be the case, I think that the logical evolution for Nike with their control boot is to enhance the grip even more. And I think when you go with texture, you can only offer so much grip. I would personally like to see something like they used to do with the control element through the midfoot on the CTR 360 line. And they've kind of already created this little triangle element where, again, there is heavier texturing on the boot, but why not do like a very thin rubber material to provide even more grip, like we saw in all three generations of CTR 360. I think that would be something really cool. And again, it would be different than anything else they're doing. It would be different than anything else anyone else is doing, and potentially would get people excited, because as it is right now, if they were to just update the platform, give the boot a slightly different look, change the silhouette slightly, I'm not sure that's enough to save that line. Because as it stands right now, the Phantom Vision is not a very popular boot. It's probably their least popular boot right now.
Yes, and an idea just struck me while you said all that. Why not, I don't see them going all, Predator element on this, going LC, and they might not be ready to go back to the C3R of, having pieces of rubber or, synthetic plastic on the, stuck on the boots yet. But I was just thinking, like the Predator LC and the whole concept that Adidas had around it with, identifying different zones for different actions and behaviors from a player, mapping them out on the boot, just like they did on the Magista Opera 2 with this whole graphic pattern they had that looked god-awful, but was actually a good idea. Why not use that data and then, actually make an even more aggressive texturing with more like, raised bumps where you need a more solidity to a control, or, a bit more like aggressive, like spike-like texturing where you need to get a bit more spin on the ball. Stuff like that, because you can take the texturing, the micro texturing they have on the current Vision, and if you just enhance it and modify it in different places to suit different needs, that would be a really cool concept, and go with the whole like CTR Predator LZ vibe. So for me, they don't have to add elements; they just have to make it more. They just have to adapt it for me. So it's not just the same all over.
Yeah, what you're saying is that what they currently have is not a bad product, but it's ultimately too safe. I think out of all four lines Nike has right now, the Phantom Vision is is where they have the freedom to be the most experimental.
Oh, definitely.
And they absolutely should. And I think that's really what built the success of the control boot category when they introduced CTR 360. It was very experimental and truly unlike anything else we had ever seen before. And while that's very difficult to do these days, given how much has been done to this point, I think with all the new tech and all the new materials that we didn't see back in the CTR 360 days, I think there's lots of opportunity to create something really unique. And I think when you have a line that's not super popular, it's very important to do something more experimental and more out there to try and get people interested in the boot. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of the Nemesis 19 Plus and how that worked out for Adidas. But I think Nike could potentially do a pretty good job with a Phantom Vision 2 if they just went crazy.
But that's also for me what they need to do. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't control boots kind of stalled since the Magista came out in 2014? I know we haven't really, the Nike control boots at least. Yes, we've seen the Magista, now we've seen the Phantom Vision. But it's kind of the same concept. It's basically a sock with some texturing on either through the knit or because of, little silicone micro texture on, but it's kind of the same concept. Like, where is the crazy, insane innovation on this that they were known for, taking chances, thinking outside of the box? That's what I need. That's what the Phantom, for me, should be. Same goes for the Venom, for that instance. They kind of went back to what worked, and I think it was a good move, because they really brought that, the Hyper Venom concept, they brought it back and made it relevant again, made a very good football boot. I just want to see them being, going back to where they put something out and you were like, really? And then it worked. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they're too. I think Nike has played it safe the last. Well, look, they did something very experimental in 2014. It changed the entire industry. And I think it's hard to expect something that drastic coming out of them every single new release. But since the knitted concept has been introduced, you're right. Like what are control boots now? They're just socks. That's all they are. So
and don't get me wrong, they're very good boots. And I liked a lot of them. But and it's not just for Nike, but I think it goes for all brands that, for me as a boot enthusiast, I really dream of, getting that, wow, are you for real, guys? Is this happening experience in 2020? And that's what I hope the vision will give me. I don't necessarily know if I have high hopes, but I hope it's going to happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with that. Let's move on to... What do you want to move on to? You've got the list.
There's probably going to be a new PUMA Future at some point because they seem to update them like every 6 months. So,
but I'm not super excited. That doesn't get me like jumping out of my seat because, like we saw with 19.1 to 4.1, likely the future 20.1, and I'm just guessing based on their naming system that's what they'll probably call it.
Yeah.
It'll probably be more or less the exact same boot with some different graphics.
Just a different structure to the knit, I guess. Just like 19.1 to 4.1, right? Just a different structure in the same boot and the same tooling.
Yeah. Just don't mess it up because I really like it.
I wish for 2020 that we get a new tooling on the PUMA Future. That's my biggest wish. PUMA, come on.
Yeah. But I think if we're talking about PUMA as like the number 3 here on this list, I'm excited to see what's next from the PUMA ONE line, and I would almost say that I would like to see something different aside from the PUMA ONE line. I think that is their area to really experiment and do something really interesting again, because while the PUMA ONE, it started pretty rough, let's be honest, and then transitioned into something significantly better. It never really caught on in popularity, partially due to it being so rough at the start. So I think, again, this is where PUMA has a chance to do something a lot more experimental, as they did with the PUMA Future concept, and hopefully draw a lot more attention to the brand once again with a unique and interesting product. What that's going to be, I have no idea.
I want a speed boot. Like I really like the One as a product, but like we talked about in the last podcast as well, I probably kill it. And I don't want another Evo Speed. That's not what I'm saying. But I want PUMA to use like the significant strides that they've made over the last couple of years since the Evo Speed and the Evo Power for that matter. Evo Touch. That was a fun boot, but the significant strides and it seems like they've made some very, very vital learnings on how to actually really make high quality product that also appeals to the general masses. So I want their take, like their 2020 take on a speed boot, because we've seen they can do absolutely mind-blowing stuff in terms of weight. They make very good speed boots. They make very comfortable boots in general, and if we can get like a super good low weight competitor to the Mercurial Vapor at those €200 price points that the PUMA seem to be rocking. That's what I would want. I'm not sure that I dare hope or wish for it, because it seems like they want to stick with the One, but that would be my wish, to get like, you have the Future, that's high innovation, that's their proprietary thing, that's their predator right now, but so we have Adidas have Predator, Nike have Mercurial, PUMA have Future. Right, I get it. But I want a speed boot. So you have the King Platinum. That's kind of the Copa Tiempo equivalent. I want the speed boot. That's probably what I would wish and hope for, although it's far-fetched. I know.
Yeah, I'm not, obviously neither of us are in charge or have anything to do with what PUMA decides to do.
That would be fun though.
But I feel like all I was thinking, because the PUMA ONE is kind of their speed boot right now. At least that's how they're more or less marketing it based on the players they're putting it in. But if you just had a lineup of all the speed boots from all the brands and the PUMA ONE is just in that lineup, I think it's fair to say that the average consumer, the non-boot nerd who for some reason isn't subscribed to this podcast, if you say speed boot, they know what that is, right? And if you just look at just the shape if you had them all on the wall, I don't think people would guess that the PUMA ONE was a speed boot because it just doesn't have that look about it. I know it's light. I know it's responsive. I know that it has all of, for the most part, the speed boot characteristics you would want. Obviously, it's a leather upper, which is not speed boot-esque in the traditional sense, but we've seen what they can do with the Evo Speed line. And I think even some of the V-Series boots, as weird as some of them were, some of those were very important in terms of the progression of speed boots over the years, no? Like, I'm thinking like V106. V106 was an important football boot.
It was.
Right? Everything after that may be questionable, but...
the V111 SL, the V110, and especially the V111 SL, it was actually, for me, also an important football boot because it really, took the Adi Zero super light concept and it just went it really set the tone for wildly light football boots.
Yeah,
and it wasn't too bad either.
I personally, I think it's a huge gap in the market right now to do a speed boot with a synthetic upper. I look at the New Balance Furon and I look at that upper and I'm like, this upper's awesome. The touch is great. It's super thin. It's what I want, what I picture when I think of a speed boot. But unfortunately, the weight
that's what you said.
everything else kind of lets you down to a certain extent. But nobody, everyone's just doing this knitted thing. And I hope if PUMA does do this speed boot, it's not just another knitted upper.
Exactly.
Or another mesh-based synthetic.
And make it a low cut, for Christ's sake. I mean, It just doesn't look like a speed boot when you have a high cut upper. Looking at every other speed boot out there. So take the learnings from the Evo Speed and the V1 series and give us some. But I don't know what to expect, to be honest. Because right now the one isn't making a ton of sense, especially because they have the King Platinum as well. So 2 leather boots. And if you look at the silhouettes, you'd probably guess that the King Platinum was their speed boot and the one was the competitor for the Copa and the Tempo and the Regular.
Yeah, it's weird to say, but you look at the silhouettes across the PUMA brand and I almost feel like they're getting chunky looking. The silhouette of the Future and the silhouette of the One are man, these are chunky football boots.
That's because it is mega chunky, my friend.
Yeah. So it's a strange direction they're going into right now. Although I will say that I think this Future 5.1 is probably the best Future they've made, at least from a comfort perspective.
Yes.
I have been I think that's the most comfortable football boot of 2019. For me.
Better than Regular?
Yes, for me.
Wow.
I really like how that boot feels on my foot.
Okay, we're going to discuss that in a question a bit later. So let's move on to another brand I'm really excited about for 2020, Mizuno.
Mizuno, which hopefully, Mizuno, if you're watching, please, we need the Neo 3. We need it.
Just take the beta and then, take the learnings from that and put it into mass production. Tweak a few things here and there, maybe make the leather a little bit thicker, and you have a winner, my friends. The beta is amazing, but it just needs a little tweak to be ready for the mass market, right? And not the completely insane speed boot lovers like ourselves. So I would definitely expect them if they are clever, and they are clever. I know that. I would expect them to push out something, and then they have a big task on their hands on improving the Regular. What are they going to do with the Regular? Because right now, I think we've hit a point where they've kind of perfected the concept that they set out to do a couple of years back. So where are they going to take it now? What's going to happen to the Morelia? Will we see another Wave Cup legend? Please? Pretty please?
I mean, look, if I was running Mizuno right now and I saw how well the Wave Cup did as a re-release, and knowing how that doesn't happen very often with the Mizuno brand, I would be very hard pressed to not say, you know what, next year, 2020, let's run a couple more colorways. We can call it a limited release, but we make a good amount of pairs and everybody who wants some can get some. And I really feel like that would be a smart move from Mizuno because they've established themselves in the market as this niche company, right? Where tell me if you agree with me, but I think people who buy Mizuno boots once or for the first time, they're generally having a very positive experience, and they're probably going to be very, very, feel pressured to buy Mizuno again. They're going to have some brand loyalty. If there's one brand that has brand loyalty still,
true,
I think it's Mizuno, right? So if you can give people exactly what they want, make it accessible to them, they're going to come back. And I think that would be a very smart move for them to do. Another remake as a more general release. And you talked about this in terms of the next generation Morelia Neo in the previous episode, maybe it was 2 ago, the tooling for the outsole, right? I think that the sole plate's good. I would like to see something a little bit more aggressive as far as the stud pattern is concerned.
And let me ask you this question, because for me, Mizuno need to do something about the Neo. And it shouldn't, for me, I know it's called Morelia Neo, but for me, it shouldn't be a Morelia Neo. It should be the Neo. It should be where Mizuno put all their latest technology. And I saw at their HQ, like they have some insane technology over there. I mean, the Japanese, after all, they cook up some really wild stuff. Why not make the Neo the driver of innovation? Like take the stuff you learned from the beta, let it break free from the Morelia line. I know it's the heritage, but let it break free from the Morelia line and go on its own journey, its own innovation journey. And then, I love the Repula, but maybe, bring back the Wave Cup Legend instead. Just make that an inline boot as like the middle ground. So you have the classic Morelia, you have the highly innovative Neo, and then you have the Wave Cup Legends. And it's probably not going to happen, but would that make sense? Tell me if I'm completely I've lost it.
You know what? Now that you say that, I think you're 100% right. I think when I was a teenager, what really impressed me about the Mizuno brand was stuff like the Wave Ignitus, was it the Wave Shinken? Is that what it was called?
Yes.
Something like that. They had all these kind of like experimental boots that had these technologies that nobody else had and nobody else was using. And I think a lot of that got overshadowed because of the lack of social media at the time. They didn't have the presence that Nike and Adidas had. And Nike and Adidas at that time were also doing these kind of highly experimental things that now nobody is doing anymore. And I think Mizuno seems to be very comfortable in terms of producing boots that they know people who buy Mizuno boots want. And ultimately those end up being very simple. But I think there is a missed opportunity from them to showcase what they're actually capable of from a conceptual and technological standpoint. Because I do think they have, like, the football division of Mizuno is just one small part of the company. The technologies that they have in their running line and other divisions of the brand, I think a lot of that could trickle down into the football boots. And they could definitely put out something that would be viewed as very, very high tech and potentially could drive a lot of new interest to the brand, because I don't think that they're doing that right now. I think what they're doing is just pleasing the people that are already buying Mizuno boots. They're not attracting new people. And I think that there's, like you said, a huge opportunity with the Neo 3 to do something wild and crazy and never been done before.
Yes.
People get excited about that.
Let it break free, because the Morelia has to always be there, right? That can't change. Bring back the Wave Cup Legend, something like that. Take the tooling from the Wave Cup Legend, slap it on the Neo, innovate on the upper, you have a winner. You heard it here first. Mizuno will take 15%, because this was really good advice. So we're going to amp up the... All right. But we don't know what's going to happen with Mizuno. But there must be something happening to the Neo. It has to be the year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 10, so.
Yeah, just sort it out. One last brand I'd like to discuss is New Balance. Like, what do we expect from New Balance in 2020? Just let's make it brief, because we also got some questions, but what are you expecting here? Will Tequila and Furon live on? What's going to happen?
I don't know, honestly. I think Furon needs, if they're going to stick with Furon, which honestly, I don't see a lot of value to that name at this point. I think calling it something different would be good, honestly. Give it a new name. Maintain the speed boot concept, give it a new name. I think there's potential. Like we just talked about, I think the upper on that boot is really good. And it just needs everything else around it to be as good. Yeah. And they could potentially do something pretty special. I don't know. Like we talked about in they're losing the Liverpool kit. It's a huge focus of their marketing right now. It's going to be an interesting year for them.
But New Balance are one of the brands that can give us this synthetic speed boot that can really rival the Mercurial, I feel, if they sort out the weight and the outsole. We talked about it in the last podcast as well, so I'm not going to dive too much into it. But for me, there is potential there. There is massive potential. They have the innovation, they have the money, they have the knowledge. They just need to get it right. And I feel that would be, if the Furon is to stay alive, that should be the main focus next year, that they actually make a top-level killer speed boot.
Yeah,
for me, this is 2020 is make or break for the Furon. Or they could pull like a Russia on this and name it after one of the name it after maybe a Danish word. They could take the Danish word for speed. That would be fart. Of course, it wouldn't look too good because fart means So maybe take something else.
Good.
Yeah. So
we should also touch on very quickly X20, if that's what they're going to call it.
Yeah,
that's another. I mean, we kind of missed that one, but that's going to be a big one this year because Adidas has been running on pretty much a 9-month cycle. So at some point in 2020, we're going to get it.
Yeah,
probably the first quarter, maybe second quarter.
You're right. Yeah, because X90. Yeah, of course.
And based on how Adidas typically operates, we're going to be due for a significant change, not just a refresh. So I don't know. My hopes for an X20 is honestly something like the 2014 F50 Adizero. But I also feel like we kind of got a little bit of a preview of what's to come with the X99.1, kind of like what Nike did when they released the Flyknit Ultra prior to the Vapor 12 Superfly 6. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm excited.
They will have taken the popularity of the X99.1 into a lot of consideration. I expect the X20 to be, if it comes out or if they go back to the F50. I expect, of course, there's going to be a new speed boot. It has to be that way, right? But I would expect it to be the sleekest thing we've seen since the introduction of the X line. I mean, I expect this to have Adizero vibes. I hope they lower the color a little bit, but there will be something. And I think they're going to focus a lot on weight and a lot of responsiveness because they have to in order to really compete with the Vapor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see. I don't know. Really set the bar.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're going to focus on the tooling or the upper, but for me, they're going to have to work on the silhouette. They're going to have to work on the tooling to really catch Nike. And I know the technology is there, but they just, this is important for Adidas because if the Predator is getting a facelift, nice, but they need the X to be like the main driver because after all, it is the speed boot. It needs to be on par with the Mercurial. We saw something that could be that boot in the X99.1, and they need to give us this synthetic speed boot with laces on the 0.1 that will really, give us what we want, right?
I just based on what you said there, and I'm the laceless hater on this podcast, but are you basically saying that you have no hope for the laceless model?
You know what? I think yes. I mean, it sounds stupid to say. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy the laceless model, but for me personally, I am looking forward to whatever they do with an X20.1 or whatever the speed boot 20.1 will be called. I mean, for me, that is that is what I'm looking forward to because it's going to give me the lockdown I want. It's going to be synthetic, hopefully. Don't make it knit Adidas, please. Yes, that's what I would go for.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the whole laceless tech. I mean, we saw them try to do something with the Nemesis 19 Plus, but aside from that, laceless tech from Adidas has more or less just been stretchy knitted material across the top of the foot, which, I mean, call it what you want. I'm sure they spent some money in the development of that, but that to me is not technology. That's just sock material.
Well, I would say if it's a gimmick, yes. But for me, looking at the Copa, it works. Nemesis works to an extent. Pred, it was. I mean, it's the same tech that as we got in 18, right? I would say, for me, their laceless technology is actually based on technology because they're working a lot with not just the stretchy knit material, but how the heel can lock in the foot.
Sure.
So yes, I would definitely call it technology. For me, it's not performance technology. It's not the top of the line performance. It's more like a holistic experience you get from the laceless boot.
But Jay, what I'm saying is I want, just for the progression of laceless tech, I want the next laceless boot from the Adidas brand to emphasize the fact that this is laceless and this is why it's better because it's laceless. Right now, I feel like they're presenting us these laceless boots as, hey, they don't have any laces. That's cool. And that's all. But cool. That's all it is. They just leave it at that.
But it is cool.
How it's laceless and what it actually is doing to hold your foot in place, none of that matters.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that needs to matter.
Right. What also matters is that we've spent 40 minutes discussing what we expect from the future, and we have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. So let's shut this part down and then move on to the questions, because we can actually answer those with some sort of... no, we can't. We're just... because we're the experts, y'all. But before we get into the question section, if you have any questions you'd like to answer in the next couple of podcasts, well, put them in the comment section right down below. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. But the first question here is from Anthony Bond. And I'm going to have to take up the computer because I'm so blind. So I have an improvement on the question, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that PUMA are running out of ideas on the future and the One, as they seem to be getting progressively worse? I don't know if I agree with that. But are they running out of ideas?
You know what? Just commenting on his question, it's pretty funny how so many people, and I think this is not uncommon to have this opinion, but when people don't see significant change, they perceive that as the boots getting worse. Where it's like you can have a great concept and you slowly build on that concept, which is kind of what I feel PUMA has done with the Future and the One series, but it hasn't really been a drastic change over the last several models. They're slowly getting better, but only slowly. And I think people expect these huge jumps. And we talked about it. I think the Future is as good as it has ever been. I'm not crazy about the lack of emphasis on the net fit system with this new design, because it really does limit your options in comparison to previous models.
But are they running out of ideas?
No. I mean, look... Again, running out of ideas, does that mean every new boot we come out with doesn't blow your mind, or every new boot that comes out is just a little bit different than the one before, right? I think you have to have realistic expectations for what's to come. But like we talked about, I think the PUMA One, as good a boot as it is, it's due for a change, and I think they need to go a little bit wild and crazy with a speed boot. That's what I would like to see. I
think for me, no, I don't think they're running out of ideas, but I just think people need to appreciate how long it actually takes to go from ideation, the whole ideation process, the idea stage, the concept stage, to actually executing. That can take years. So they might be cooking up some stuff for us right now because they've spent a lot of time developing the Future concept. Okay, then maybe they rushed the One concept a little bit and kind of caught up, made it an awesome boot. But I don't think they've been running out of ideas. I just think that they must be working on something now. We might see the fruits of their labor in 2020 or 2021. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that something is coming because I mean, they've been showing us over the past years that they have new, fresh ideas. And I don't hope that the Future was the only the shot they had. So no, I don't think they're running out of ideas. I just think they're taking their time. So Jose is asking, watching the Future video here, he's saying at 40 seconds, if they compare it to the Vapor 5 colorway, I think it was Superfly 1 colorway, and they're going to say that's the same, he's going to make his own boot review. So welcome on YouTube. We're going to look forward to watching those because we totally did. Then we have one from Francisco Souza. In past years, Adidas launched some Copa Mundials in different colors. Do you think they will do it again, considering they now have a line of boots that they are using with the Copa name?
You know what? That's something that has always kind of baffled me, because I feel like that's a license to print money for Adi, especially like they did the white with black stripes that sold out pretty quickly. The Samba pack ones were not as popular because they were kind of weird looking.
Yeah.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
But like simple color combinations, like the blue and white, the red and white, the white and black, like color variations that people would want of the Copa, even as just limited releases every 2 or 3 months. I feel like that's a guaranteed sellout for them.
Do what they do on the Kaiser and just put that on the Copa. Yeah, I totally agree. But I think they're trying to really, protect the heritage of the Copa Mundial. They don't want to do this too often. And I think that's the whole, I'm not sure I agree. I agree with you, but I think this is the reason why they don't do it. So no, to answer the question, I don't expect any wild new colorways to come out of the Copa Mundial anytime soon. Just my opinion. So Armando Macedo, if that's the right way to pronounce that.
Can I just point out how I like how you try to pick up the accent of whatever name you're reading. I like that.
Well, it can also mean that I get the name spectacularly wrong, in which case I'm very sorry. He's asking also in the future video, these or the Phantom Venoms?
For me personally, I would pick the Futures purely based on comfort. I love what the Phantom Venom does, and I think that it's objectively probably better if you're really like going head to head in like different categories. But I prefer the comfort, and I actually like the slightly more padded touch of the Future versus the Venom.
I think the Future's better. If this had been slimmer and actually have a normal width to it, this would really rank highly in my boot rotation. But because of that, I think I might go for the, I take the low cut Future. Sorry, Phantom. I take the low cut Future because it's hella comfy, in my opinion. But it's a close race. They're both good boots, but they're just like small things that I'm not 100% in love with.
Yeah, the Venom definitely leans towards being more kind of classic speed boot in terms of how it fits and feels, where the Future is more like padded sock.
Right. We also get a question, Vapor 13, Elite, PUMA Future 5.1, Vapors every day.
No, not for me. I'd pick the Futures. But again, very different boots, very different fit. Just depends on what you like.
Absolutely. And that is also very fair because the Vapor is very minimalistic. It's very slim. And the PUMA Future is padded and comfortable and very, very wide. So it really depends on what you want. Oh, so bin bags, when will we get news on the SR4U boot? And is there a release date? So yeah, will we ever make a Boot Nerds Discord server for people to ask questions and talk? We might do that one day, but I don't think it's in the works right now. But let's talk about the boots. What's happening with the boots, man? Let's tell us more.
There's significant progress being made. Look, I'm very my hands are very tied in terms of what I can actually talk about.
That's why I'm asking the question. I'm looking forward to like a masterclass of just dancing around the actual topic here. I'm really excited.
Yeah, like I have zero permission to talk about what I'm talking about right now, but there is a boot. Nothing has been finalized at this point, but I can tell you, and this is exclusive news, nobody outside of this knows about this, but it is currently in the prototype phase. Okay. That's about as much information as I can reveal.
Will I like it? That's the question.
Will you like it? That we are actually, the whole focus of this design is to make sure that JayMike gives it a 10 out of 10.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to hear.
It's good. So yeah, it's an exciting project. More to come. I know a lot of you guys have been anticipating updates every single week. Unfortunately, as Jay talked about with Puma running out of ideas, these things take a lot of time when you're basically designing something from scratch. So I'll keep you guys updated. When I have more to share, I will definitely share it with you. But as of right now, just know that it is a work in progress, but the wheels are turning.
Yeah. So, Ricky Hui, what would you get? A pair of high-end boots from a previous model or a pair of takedowns from the current generation? It's a good question. I think a lot of people are facing this dilemma. You know, should they go with, for instance, a Vapor 12 Elite or should they buy a Vapor 13 Pro? Just as an example.
I would say like 9 out of 10 times I'm going for last year's top end model.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but it does depend. Sometimes we get these like weird first tier takedown models that are really, really good for some reason. At which point, yeah, it makes sense to buy that newer takedown if it's something different and what you like. But again, it kind of just depends on what you like. But I guess if you're asking the question based purely on a quality perspective, you're almost 100% of the time getting a better quality product from last year's top end model versus almost any takedown. Unless
we're talking Mizuno Morelia, because I'd rather take the Elite Morelia 3 than the Made in Japan Morelia 2. But it's just like that's the 1 in 100.
But do you really count that as a takedown model? I almost view that as like what Adidas does with the laceless and the lace version.
Fair enough.
You know,
fair enough.
That's not a takedown. Yeah. It's still over $200,
and it's an amazing. It's like as we've talked about, it can still compete with the best, you know, high level boots out there. So you're making a fair point. I'm sorry.
I always do.
Moving on to the next one. Henry Roden, now that the Future 5.1s have dropped, what would that have won your comfort category in the boot awards of the year? Well, I mean, of course, we're going to round that up and, you know, revisit that when the year closes in a little over a month. But I think it sounds like, yeah, it would have won for Josh, right?
For me, yeah. For me.
I think
what about you?
I think it depends. I would be inclined to say yes, but because it's just like a slipper. But also it's a little too wide for me to feel. I feel comfortable in a cozy, like nice way, in a, you know, granddad slipper couch kind of way. But I don't feel comfortable because my foot has a little bit too much room around it. And with that said, I would actually point to the Morelia 3 still being the most comfortable boot of 2019.
Really? Yeah. See, like comfort is so. I was just thinking of this right now. So this is a little bit of a rough analogy, but you can talk about comfort in two ways. Right? It is. I'm excited to say it. You could be comfortable in wearing like a big baggy pair of sweatpants. That's comfortable, right? But then you could also say, I'm more comfortable wearing like, you know, like the spandex tights that like go from like their full length pants, but those are also comfortable, but they're comfortable in very different ways, right? It's good. That's a good. Don't tell me that's not good. That's a perfect analogy.
I really need to get this image out of my head. I'm just picturing you in like spandex pants. I understand the analogy. I would probably have said like suit pants or something like that, which can also be comfortable because you feel like on it. But spandex pants, each to their own taste, I guess. So we got a question from Jonathan Rodriguez. For both of you, which of your football favorite old boots could be released in today's market as if they had never come out before and then be bestsellers? And it's a very good question.
Oh, that is a good question, actually. So old boot that could come out now and people would be excited about it. Okay, so I think I'm adding an extra point into the question. So let's assume that boot never released in the first place. So it's not a re-release.
No, that's the question. What if this was never released in the first place? It came out now instead of 5 years ago.
I wasn't listening.
F50 Adi 2014.
Oh yeah, that's a really solid pick because that boot, I still think that's one of the best speed boots of all time. That's a really easy pick. I think
Phantom One.
Phantom One is I think a really solid pick as well. But I'm trying to think of something more out there that I would like to see back.
Warrior Screamer, Gambler.
Yeah, definitely that. No. You know what would be an interesting one? Is I'd be so interested to see a Lotto Zero Gravity come out now. Wouldn't that be, that was a boot that was way ahead of its time. And
I like that.
It has so many problems, but it would be such a unique concept and so different in comparison to all the other laceless boots.
You know what? Scrap everything else. Lotto Zero Gravity is the answer to this question.
I think that's a cool answer.
Kana says, "What up, my boys? What up? However you do it these days when you're a young, cool guy." I would have no idea. If you could choose a club and a player from any generation to play for and with, what and who would it be? So you can pick any club and any player from any generation that you would play for and with. Who would that be?
Oh my gosh. What a question that is.
For me, it's very simple, actually.
Okay,
I would want to play for Manchester United in either the 98-99 season, the treble-winning season, and I wanted to play with Paul Scholes, because everyone who played with or against Paul Scholes, they talk about how he is the best midfielder they've ever played with or against. Like, I would want to see this guy every day in training just pinging these mad passes, just working in like the engine room. I would of course also love to play with Messi and Ronaldo and Beckham and Pele and all those. But Paul Scholes, I mean, judging from what everyone, Zidane, Iniesta, everyone, what they've said, like maestros of the game, they've all said Paul Scholes is the best. Like, that would be my choice.
That's a good pick. And I was thinking when I'm like, okay, do I want to play with like Messi or Ronaldo? And I'm like, you know what? It'd be cool, but I'd never get the ball.
Scholes would get you the ball all the time.
Right? That's a good pick, because I was also thinking, and I'm just kind of looking at the jerseys that I have hung up here. I'm like, you know what? Can you imagine receiving like a long pass from Pirlo on the regular?
Oof.
That'd be like, every time that guy kicks the ball, it's just like, I could just watch him kick the ball all day long. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, like, I don't know, like,
which team?
I'd love to play. I'd love to be on the same team as Zlatan. I feel like that would be an experience.
Just don't ever mess up. You'd never see
just
the
don't
ball.
ever mess up. But like, even if you did, like, imagine being able to tell your kids, like, yeah, one time messed up and he kicked me in the face. What a story.
But which team? Which team?
Oh,
club.
How many Zlatan teams have there been, right? You know what? I guess maybe at Barcelona, because that's kind of a pretty special club to be at. Okay. I don't know that's. Yeah, we'll say that. Say right. Zlatan at Barca.
Right. And with those words, I think we've concluded. We have more questions and we're going to answer them in the next podcast, of course. I think we're going to conclude this week's podcast to not go grossly over time and bore you guys to death. If you have listened all the way through, you guys are legends and we thank you so much. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, don't forget to leave a like on the video. We're going to appreciate it so much, and it's going to help us spread the word about the Boot Nerds podcast to the rest of the interwebs. Of course, if you have questions that you want us to answer in the next episode, it's in the comment section right down below that happens. And of course, if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what you've been doing, but click the subscribe button in the middle of your screen. And if you also want to see what Josh is up to, there's a subscribe button right over there to my right. You can click the Unisport subscribe button right here. And I think with those words, I'm Jay and I'm signing off. Cheerio, I approve these words.
See you later.
Messed that up. I've just done it for Unisport today, so that's like, I messed it up. I'm sorry.